The rhythmic, mechanical hiss of a pediatric ventilator cut through the sterile silence of the ICU. I was sitting in a plastic chair, watching my 7-year-old daughter Maya fight for every single breath. Her lungs were failing from a rare, aggressive autoimmune disease, and my own father was exactly 48 hours away from selling her only cure to a predatory hedge fund that intended to permanently bury it. If the people who gave you life put a literal price tag on your child's death, is it a crime to legally erase them from existence? Before I go any further, I know some of you watching have been bled dry by the people who were supposed to be your family. This community exists for exactly this kind of story. If you are new here, hit subscribe. You belong here. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. The US, the UK, Canada, Australia? I read every single one. Now, let me take you back. To understand how a grandfather could sell his own bloodline for a corporate payout, you have to understand the parasitic ecosystem of my family. My name is Clara. I am a senior a forensic auditor for Fortune 500 companies. I don't just balance ledgers. I dismantle international shell companies, track hidden corporate liabilities, and legally execute financial predators. But in my family, I was just the invisible wallet. My father, Arthur, was the failing CEO of our legacy pharmaceutical firm. My older sister, Beatrice, was his arrogant, entirely incompetent VP of sales. Together, they scavenged the company's capital to fund their crippling narcissism. Beatrice bought a $140,000 Porsche Panamera while laying off the entire research department. Arthur funneled $600,000 into renovating his Hamptons estate, while the corporate credit rating downgraded to junk status. They consumed everything in their path. 6 years ago, Maya was diagnosed. The pediatric specialists gave me a horrific timeline. There was no profitable market for her disease. The massive pharmaceutical giants wouldn't touch it. So, I built a cure myself. I set up a private LLC. I contracted independent geneticists in Switzerland. I worked 90-hour weeks auditing horrific corporate mergers just to fund the clinical lab space. I sold my house. I drove a 10-year-old sedan. I skipped meals. Over 6 years, I routed exactly $2,150,400 of my own salary directly into the R&D of a patented, life-saving gene therapy. We called it the orphan drug. It was specifically synthesized to save Maya's life. 2 weeks ago, the final clinical trial cleared. The drug worked. I was sitting in the ICU, holding Maya's fragile hand, waiting for the manufacturing protocol to initiate. My encrypted work tablet buzzed on the hospital tray. It was an automated SEC filing alert. I opened the PDF. The blood instantly drained from my face. My private LLC didn't own the patent anymore. Arthur and Beatrice had weaponized a dormant 30-year-old family trust clause to forcefully absorb my LLC into their failing parent company. They didn't just steal the patent. They executed a binding term sheet with Vanguard Capital, a ruthless private equity firm in London. The purchase price was $34,500,000. But Vanguard Capital didn't want to manufacture my daughter's cure. Vanguard owned the global patent for the existing, highly profitable symptom management medications for Maya's disease. They were buying the orphan drug to permanently shelve it. They were paying my father $34 million to protect their monopoly. And my father accepted the deal, knowing it would literally suffocate his own granddaughter. I didn't scream. I walked out of the ICU, stood in the freezing hospital parking lot, and dialed my father's private cell. Beatrice answered on the second ring.
"Clara, darling,"
Beatrice cooed, her voice dripping with fake manufactured sympathy.
"I know you're upset, but you have to look at the macroeconomics.
You sold Maya's drug to Vanguard," I whispered, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "They are going to bury it, Beatrice. She will die." "The family company is drowning, Clara," Arthur yelled from the background, his voice thick with expensive scotch and unearned arrogance. "We are facing bankruptcy. 30 million saves the legacy."
"It's collateral damage, Clara," Beatrice sighed. We will set up a nice memorial fund in Maya's name. Be a team player.
I closed my eyes. They genuinely believed I was just going to weep and submit. They forgot what I do for a living. Fine, I said, letting my voice crack with fake defeat. Just make sure I get my original $2 million back from the buyout.
See? I knew you'd be reasonable, Beatrice chirped. Fly to London tomorrow. You need to physically sign the final LLC release at the closing.
I hung up the phone. The submissive, terrified mother died in that parking lot. The apex auditor took the wheel. I drove straight to my office, locked the heavy glass doors, and opened a secure federal VPN tunnel. Arthur and Beatrice thought paper contracts made them invincible. They were absolute amateurs. I bypassed our parent company's firewall in 12 minutes. I didn't just look at the term sheet. I pulled the raw, deleted email servers between Arthur and the Vanguard hedge fund managers. It was a bloodbath of illegal collusion. Vanguard specifically stated in writing that the $34,500,000 was a premium paid to suppress a competing medical technology. That isn't just unethical. Under international trade laws, it is a massive, highly illegal antitrust violation. I pulled the IP routing logs. Arthur had already accepted a $5 million offshore wire transfer from Vanguard to secure the vote. He didn't put it into the failing company. He routed it to a shell account in the Cayman Islands to hide it from his domestic creditors. Wire fraud, fiduciary assassination, antitrust collusion. I compiled every single deleted email, offshore receipt, and forged board resolution. I built an 82-page forensic dossier. I didn't call a family lawyer. I sent the encrypted package directly to the Enforcement Division of the SEC and the UK Serious Fraud Office. I flagged it under my corporate auditor ID. I attached a single note: multinational antitrust collusion, imminent flight risks, executing tomorrow. Then, I went home. I packed a tailored black suit. I kissed my sleeping daughter's forehead. I boarded a red-eye flight to London. The closing was held on the 60th floor of Vanguard Capital's global headquarters. It was pouring rain outside. The gray water lashed violently against the floor-to-ceiling glass walls. The massive boardroom smelled like expensive espresso, leather, and predatory greed. Arthur was sitting at the head of the mahogany table, wearing a bespoke suit, practically glowing with unearned wealth. Beatrice was aggressively checking her gold Rolex, completely bored by my presence. 3 Vanguard hedge fund managers sat across from us. They looked like sharks circling a bleeding raft. I sat completely alone at the end of the table. No lawyers, no backup. Just my encrypted tablet resting on the polished wood. "Let's make this quick," the lead Vanguard partner said, his voice dripping with elitist boredom. He slid a heavy, leather-bound contract across the massive table. "Clara, sign the LLC release. We wire the $34 million. Everyone goes home rich." I didn't touch the gold Mont Blanc pen. I looked at Arthur. He was sipping sparkling water, refusing to even make eye contact with me. I let the silence stretch. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. The quiet ticking of Beatrice's Rolex echoed in the dead air. The arrogant smiles slowly started to fade. The tension in the room mutated into a suffocating physical weight. "Sign the damn paper, Clara," Arthur snapped, his polished facade cracking. "I have a dinner reservation in Mayfair." I slowly opened the cover of my tablet. "You aren't going to Mayfair, Arthur," I said, my voice completely dead and devoid of any human emotion. I tapped one single key on my screen. I had already wirelessly bypassed Vanguard's boardroom presentation network. The massive, smart glass wall behind the hedge fund managers instantly went black. The entire room froze. Displayed in massive, glowing white text was the raw, deleted email from Vanguard, explicitly ordering the suppression of my daughter's drug. Right next to it was the wire transfer receipt, showing Arthur's $5 million offshore bribe. And highlighted in violent red was the official DOJ and SEC whistleblower confirmation seal. The color completely drained from the Vanguard partner's face. He looked like he had just stepped on a landmine. "What the hell is this?" Arthur demanded, his voice trembling as he stood up. "That is a live forensic trace of international antitrust collusion," I said coldly, looking directly into Beatrice's terrified eyes. "You didn't just try to kill my daughter. You committed massive multinational wire fraud." Beatrice dropped her phone. Her hands started shaking violently. "You hacked us?" Vanguard's lead lawyer yelled, physically backing away from the table. "I didn't hack you," I replied, slicing right through his corporate panic. "I audited you, and I submitted this entire dossier to federal authorities 24 hours ago." Right on cue, the heavy glass doors of the boardroom were violently shoved open. They didn't knock. A dozen armed officers from the UK Serious Fraud Office and Interpol flooded the room. When international wire fraud enters the room, expensive lawyers don't protect you. They abandon you. The Vanguard partners immediately threw their hands in the air, distancing themselves from my father. "Arthur Vance, Beatrice Vance," the lead investigator barked, his voice echoing like a gunshot. Arthur physically collapsed back into his leather chair. He clutched his chest, gasping for air as a complete panic attack hijacked his nervous system. "No, wait, it's a family company!" Beatrice hyperventilated, mascara running down her face as an officer grabbed her wrists. The heavy steel handcuffs clicked loudly. The sound was absolute perfection. They were dragged out of the glass boardroom, kicking and sobbing, publicly destroyed in front of the exact billionaires they sold my daughter to impress. I didn't smile. I calmly closed my tablet, packed it into my leather bag, and walked out into the London rain. The legal fallout was an absolute, unmitigated slaughter. There was no instant jail time. The federal justice system is slow and brutal. But it didn't matter. The SEC immediately executed a total, uncompromising asset freeze on my father's company. Vanguard Capital was hit with a $200 million federal fine, and the lead partners were permanently stripped of their trading licenses. Because of the documented fraud, the LLC absorption was legally nullified. I retained 100% exclusive ownership of the orphan drug patent. Arthur and Beatrice had their passports confiscated. They are currently under house arrest, facing 15 years in federal prison for wire fraud and corporate extortion. Their luxury cars were repossessed. Their bank accounts are zeroed. I didn't attend their preliminary hearings. I don't care if they rot. I am sitting in the ICU right now. The ventilator is still humming. But resting on the metal tray next to Maya's bed is a cold glass vial of the synthesized gene therapy. Clinical trials for her specific treatment initiate on Monday. She is going to live. If this story resonated with you, drop a yes in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. You do not want to miss next week's video. A wealthy mother-in-law tries to secretly sell a woman's startup company out from under her, only to realize the daughter-in-law legally patented the company name under her own dog's microchip. Blood makes you related, but loyalty? Loyalty is a balance sheet, and theirs just went bankrupt.